I'm Dr. John Gartner.
And I'm Dr. Harry Segal.
And welcome to this preview of Shrinking Trump.
On this week's show, we return to the issue of Donald Trump's cognitive decline. And we are so pleased to see that the issue we've been talking about for 24 episodes has been finally covered in a major newspaper. Right, John?
Well, not just a major newspaper, the major newspaper, the New York Times, the paper of record that we grew up with, believing was the apex of journalistic achievement, and has been the paper of record. It's finally in the New York Times that Donald Trump is being considered as someone who has cognitive decline. It's a front page article from Sunday by Peter Baker. It's a long article, and we'll be going through it in our preview.
And we also have a special guest, don't we?
Yes, we do. I'm very happy to say that for those of you who are on Twitter, you know him as Brooklyn Dad. He's going to be, Brooklyn Dad Defiant since the 2020 election. And he is going to be on the show today, and we're very happy to have him. He was Angry Brooklyn Dad. I think he is now Brooklyn Dad Defiant, the same idea. And he has a podcast actually on the Really American Network, Defiant, and he's a consultant to the Really American Network. And I want to talk with him about his Twitter account. We're going to be talking about that, but he has 1.3 million followers, and he has become a major influencer on Twitter. But most recently, he's published a book. I'm not sure if I should describe it as a graphic novel. I actually should have asked him about this beforehand, or in some ways as a way of addressing with satire the psychology of Donald Trump, a sort of comic or children's book sort of format, where he's actually making a lot of comments about the psychology of Donald Trump. His book is The Bigliest Loser. And you can see there with little Donnie there is having a temper tantrum in the middle of the floor on his classified documents while he's surrounded by a group of people from the administration, January 6th, the man with the horns, and Rudy Giuliani and Marjorie Taylor Greene. And then we've got, what's her name, shooting a gun. Anyway.
Laura Boebert,
thank you. We have some clips of some pictures that I want you to read for us.
I like portraying him as small because he is a small, petty man who is
very good,
obsessed with size. He's obsessed with the biggest crowds, and are my hands the right size, and he's putting lifts in his shoes, and he's not really 215 pounds as he says he is, but it's all about size with him. And so he really is a small man, so to portray him as such, I thought was, kind of poetic.
And psychologically infantile, right? I mean, he's frozen at a very primitive state of existence. And, the scenes you have with him having a tantrum or whatever, I mean, really portray his level of psychological maturity. Well, let's see some of the pages. And actually, can you read them for us? And actually, because we have people who are listening, who I can't see, half our audience is listening. I'm going to ask you to read them, but I'm going to ask you also to describe some of the illustrations so people can visualize what it is we're seeing.
My pleasure. Okay, so what we're looking at here is Spanky sitting in a little red and yellow car. Now, so there's a meme that it's been out there for a long time that depicts a full-size Donald Trump sitting in one of those toy plastic cars. And so that's what I was going for with this one. But the street he's on a street that is empty. It is deserted. These were the days and weeks right after we heard that COVID was a thing. And I remember they were laying off a lot of people. They were shutting businesses down left and right. So what you see here are stores that are closed. You can see some business fronts that are boarded up and they say out of business, closed, et cetera, et cetera. And Spanky McDumbass is in his little toy car saying, "I take no responsibility." So the text for this page reads thusly. But soon, everyone saw that this was serious. The sports teams shut down. Restaurants shut down. Businesses everywhere shut down. But Spanky refused to tell the country to shut down to slow the spread of the disease. Spanky was really irresponsible. And that's the kind of the meter that I use throughout, at the end, at the bottom of the pages. Spanky was this and Spanky was that, and it's sticking with that narrative, telling the story of what he did and who he is as a result of what he did. I felt it was important to cover COVID in this book, because my first one, The Littlest President, I literally published it on the day that I lost my job. The day that I was laid off by a Trump supporter, and so yeah, ironically, that was the day I became full-time Brooklyn Dad Defiant, and but there was March 21st, and at that point, it really, he was saying that 15 would soon be 0. We didn't have thousands of people dying per day yet, so that wasn't captured in my book. And all of the stuff that followed wasn't captured in The Littlest President. So I thought it was necessary, with the election coming up, to make sure that this stuff goes on record, that he is held accountable in my very serious history book. It's not just COVID, but it's also January 6th. And it covers the crimes and all the stuff that a certain percentage of the American public is ready to memory hole and just forgive him for. And he doesn't deserve anyone's forgiveness. He never asked for forgiveness. He certainly doesn't deserve to be forgiven for these things that caused many, many deaths, that cost the loss of many businesses and many jobs. So yeah, I wanted to make sure I captured this, and also give people a chance to laugh at a very tense, stressful time. Because I know myself, I am stressed every day. I'm scared to death that that America might get this wrong. Somebody asked me the other day, Brooklyn, you have Kamala winning in this book. What are you going to do if she loses? I'm like, I don't know.
Time. You're going to do time.
they're like, the
trolls about your sales.
They're like, the trolls are going to come after you. I'm like, the trolls are coming after me anyway, no matter what. So bring it.
Let's see the last page of your book. I had a whole bunch of other pages, but we didn't have time to go through them. But Rex, can you switch to the last one since we're talking about it, the outcome? I'll let you read it and describe it.
Okay, so for those of you who are listening, what we have on the screen is a Department of Corrections bus with some prison bars on the back, and Spanky is crying his eyes out. And there's a banner. There's a banner stretching across the back of the bus that says "Just incarcerated," and there are balloons attached, and there are cans attached to the rear fender. and there is a massive crowd on either side of a long and winding road. There are people on both the left and the right of this road, all holding up a middle finger to Spanky McDumbass as he's being carted away. And the text reads, "Now that Spanky had no more court appeals and he failed to get elected again, it was time to face the music. Spanky was convicted of most of the 88 counts he was facing. But since he was so old, he was only given a total of 12 years in prison, which meant he'd get out at age 90. Millions of relieved Americans came from far and wide to watch Spanky get driven away to prison. The crowd was tremendous. It was a huge, bigly crowd. It was the bigliest crowd ever. So finally, the littlest, oldest convicted felon had the bigliest crowd of middle fingers ever." The end.
Yay! That's great.
We can only hope.
If he gets 12 years, that's could be a life sentence.
Just
saying.
I think it'll take a long time, and I hope it happens. I really do.
You know, like they say, next year in Jerusalem. Next year, we see him in your paddy wagon and can give him the middle finger.
What, John, you mean
Please.
next year in Attica?
Next year in Attica, right? Good one.
But yeah, this book was fun to write. I almost didn't go through with it. Actually, there were several points at which I just didn't feel. I didn't feel the narrative moving forward the way I wanted to. This is a fiction, right? In terms of, the end result of this book has not yet happened. So certain things have not yet happened, but most of it is true, right?
Mhm.
And what was happening, what was leading up to July had me kind of bummed out. There was a narrative in the media where they were like, Joe Biden is old. And also, we thought you should know that Joe Biden is old. And while you think about that, think about this. Joe Biden is old. And they were ignoring all of the other crap that Donald Trump, all of his insane rantings, and it was irrelevant.
That's what brought me out of retirement. That issue specifically is what brought me out of retirement. And I'm hoping that, I'm hoping that what we had to say made a difference. Listen, I think that Kamala's doing a great job. She's got this message. They've got the message, and I think they are running the campaign with the message. They're getting through, I think.
Please.
Harry, did you have any other questions for Brooklyn?
No, but Majid, it's so great to have you. So much fun.
Oh, thank you. It's a thrill and a privilege to be here with you guys. Really, thank you for what you guys are doing. It is absolutely essential.
Thank you, and vice versa. I'm so glad you came on.
Right back at you.
See you next time. Bye-bye. The thing that I said that would make me feel like I could rest in peace, it's finally been covered in the New York Times. Right? We've been banging on the door really for 9 years to get this story in the New York Times, but it is finally there. Mm-hmm. And so it really is a moment of celebration because, as I said, having grown up in New York, maybe we idealize the New York Times a little too much. It's such a ritual in my family when they used to get the paper to open the New York Times every day and read it from cover to cover. It was the paper of record, and nationally it is considered the paper of record. And so it's sort of like if a tree falls in the forest and it isn't reported in the New York Times, did it really happen? So finally, it is being reported, and it's a very long, in-depth article. It was the cover story on Sunday. It was their main article. So actually, we're going to have quite a few quotes from it because it really is worth going into some depth.
And if you, just to interrupt, if you go look at it, there's actually a video component with Peter Baker showing examples. My only complaint is he's talking about it like he's the first person to discover it and show it, and we've been talking about it for 6 months.
Listen, I'm just grateful that he's covering it. Really. Actually, I didn't bring video. What I have is the quotes. But Harry, maybe you can walk us through the article.
Sure, of course. Trump's speeches, increasingly angry and rambling, reignite the question of age. Former President Donald J. Trump vividly recounted how the audience at his climactic debate with Vice President Kamala Harris was on his side, except that there was no audience. The debate was held in an empty hall. No one, quote, went crazy, as Mr. Trump put it, because no one was there. Anyone can misremember, of course, but the debate had been just a week earlier and a fairly memorable moment, and it was hardly the only time Mr. Trump has seemed confused, forgetful, incoherent, or disconnected from reality lately. In fact, it happens so often these days that it no longer even generates much attention. He rambles, he repeats himself, he roams from thought to thought, some of them hard to understand, some of them unfinished, some of them factually fantastical. He voices outlandish claims that seem to be made up of whole cloth. He digresses into bizarre tangents about golf, about sharks, about his own beautiful body, quote unquote. He relishes, quote, a great day in Louisiana after spending the day in Georgia. He expresses fear that North Korea is, quote, trying to kill me, when he presumably means Iran. As late as last month, Mr. Trump was still speaking as if he were running against President Biden 5 weeks after his withdrawal from the race. And he heads off into rhetorical cul-de-sacs. Quote, so we built a thing called the Panama Canal, he told the conservative host Tucker Carlson last year. We lost 35,000 people to the mosquito, malaria. We lost 35,000 people building. We lost 35,000 people because of the mosquito. Vicious. They had to build under nets. It was one of the true great wonders of the world. As he said, one of the 9 wonders of the world. No, it was one of the 7. It just happened a little while ago. He says 9 wonders of the world. You could make 9 wonders. He would have been better off if he just stuck with a 9 and said, yeah, I think it's 9. He mispronounces names and places with some regularity. Charlottetown instead of Charlottesville, Minneapolis instead of Minneapolis, the website Snoops instead of Snopes, Leon Musk instead of Elon.
Well, that's quite a collection of information there. One thing they did that we've also often lambasted the media for not doing is give an extended quotation, right? That you read there, that whole thing about 9 wonders of the world or 7 wonders of the world. And that's one of the things that has been absent. So aside from all the comments that he made about his disordered thinking and whatnot, the fact that they even gave that longer quote really epitomizes his disordered thinking.
Yes. Good, vivid details. Good reporting. Finally.
Yeah, finally. So, hey, it's a red letter day. Let's mark it in our calendars. I will. So that was the good news. So here's some bad news. We're going to show you a clip from Bill O'Reilly, but actually it's sort of deliciously bad in the sense that he's so angry. He's so upset because he saw one of George Conway's anti-psychopath pack ads, and he's outraged. How can these ads be shown on Fox? Let's see that.
So I'm watching an EVP debate, and a commercial political ad comes up, and it smears Donald Trump. It's a disgusting, revolting ad. I'm not going to play it. I'm not going to run it. I'm not going to even tell you what it was. That's how revolting the whole thing is. So I said to my staff, look into this. Who paid for this ad? It was paid for by a man named George Conway. Used to be married to Kelly Ann Conway. In my opinion, he is a despicable human being, this guy. He hates Trump, but not only that, he wants to destroy anyone with whom he disagrees. He runs a political action committee called Anti-Psychopath. It's devoted totally to destroying Donald Trump and his family. All the money that Conway raises goes to that purpose. And he puts on this revolting political ad. Shockingly, Fox News, ESPN, Golf Channel, CNN, MSNBC, News Nation, Newsmax, Hallmark, and Lifetime all ran the ad. Why? Why would you run that ad? Everybody knows it's defamatory. Why? There's got to be some kind of standards here. Shocking. It's blood money. Any company and corporation take money, an ad like that's blood money.
Can I just say something? Bill O'Reilly is one of the most despicable human beings. I watched him in the 90s. He eventually was fired because he would sexually harass employees, but not even in the kind of usual smarmy way of trying to get sexual favors. He delighted in humiliating and embarrassing people. That's what he used to do on his show. And listen to him, so outraged that anyone would be defamatory in defense of a guy who lies during hurricanes about things that haven't happened, who's called Kamala mentally disabled, and this creep who, by the way, is aging really badly, and it makes me happy to see it on his little kind of cable show, is puffing himself up because he's so moral and so superior.
Yeah, well, we have to have standards.
I'm so
But
glad
the
you played that, John. I hate him.
But the reason I showed it, other than all those reasons, is because this shows that George's campaign, the anti-psychopath PAC's campaign, is working. Because how could they show it? I'm not even going to talk about what was in the ad. It was a terrible ad. I just don't understand. Their only goal is to destroy Donald Trump. Well, why is he so protective of them destroying Donald Trump? Because George Conway's strategy is working. They're beaming these commercials into Mar-a-Lago and Bedminster, New Jersey, and where his clubs are. So he's seeing them, and the people in his clubs are seeing them because they have it turned to Fox all day long, or the Golf Channel, or what have you. And that's where he's outraged that these channels are taking the ads because they're hurting Donald Trump. So in other words, the strategy is working, is what I'm trying to say. If Bill O'Reilly is getting this protective of Donald Trump, reaction to those ads, that shows they're working. And let's see George Conway taking a victory lap on Twitter about Bill O'Reilly's complaint. So Bill O'Reilly calls me, quote, despicable in this clip because through Anti-Psychopath PAC, I created, funded, and aired 2 ads featuring women who real Donald Trump assaulted. I'm not the bragging type, but I must admit, I consider this a tremendous honor. And I wish to thank Bill, as well as my team at PsychoPac, and all of us who contributed to the PAC for making this honor possible. I hope to live up to it by producing much more such ads in the very near future. And by the way, I'm struggling to remember, so maybe all of you could remind me, how and why did Bill O'Reilly lose his gig at Fox News?
There it is. I'm so glad he wrote that at the end of that tweet because I never forgot what Bill O'Reilly did.
Good. So I thought you would find that satisfying.
Can you promise me that we never have to see him again, though, on the show? No more Bill O'Reilly, please. That's enough.
All right. That was enough.
So you can see more of that interview and actually more information on why John thinks the polls are underestimating Kamala's strength. And that's all on the show. It's broadcast through the Really American Network. You can see our new episode on Friday at 3 p.m. and streaming after that. So we hope to see you there. Okay.
Bye-bye.